Hi friends, in today's video we are going to continue our warehouse management series for the episode number 5. So in the episode number 4 we actually got into the details of how the warehouse layout need to be configured and how are the setups which are related to warehouse and location profiles. So that's what we saw in episode number 4. And now in episode number 5, we will get into the details of how to configure the mobile device. So we have configured the uh, warehouses and locations, and other than that, what are the setups which are required? We have configured. Now we need to configure the mobile device if you are going for the advanced warehouse management processes. Because in the next episode, we are going to proceed with the release to warehouse, waiving and load other advanced concepts of warehouse management processes. So if you want to get regular updates, please do follow my profile in LinkedIn, or if you're watching this video in YouTube, then subscribe my channel Sriram Sivashankaran. Okay, so let's quickly get into this. First of all, let me share the presentation which I have made. So we are right now in episode number 5, and now in this episode our agenda is to continue the configurations. In the part 1 we discussed about the warehouse layouts, site warehouse location setups, and in this episode we will be talking much in detail about how to configure the mobile device. So that's what we will be covering in this video. So when we talk about the configuration of mobile device, primarily there are three things which we need to cover. One is the worker, mobile device, and the mobile device menu item. So these are the three things which we need to cover. So the worker who is actually using the mobile device, he or she need to be configured in the system, and then whatever the device he or she is using, those device need to be configured. The scan device or the mobile phone, whatever they are using, that need to be configured in Dynamics 365 SCM, and this has to be done by the system administrator who is actually owning the configuration part as part of your implementation projects, or if you are using it as an end user, right? So when we talk about the worker, like I pointed out here, the mobile device user setting features lets you define global user settings that will be used on all devices. So when a worker is configured in your SCM, the whatever the devices he or she is using, so it basically applies to all the devices the person is using inside your warehouse. You can also define more granular user settings for individual device brands, device models, and our workers. So that's what we will see now, how we will can do that. For what are the options to configure the worker in your mobile device, that we will see just in a couple of minutes. When a worker signs into the warehouse management mobile app, the app fetches and applies the most specific setting profiles that is stored in supply chain management for the matching brand, device, and or the user ID. So even though we say that globally any device the user can use, so based on the matching brand, device, and the user ID which the user uses to log into warehouse management mobile app, based on which the system fetches and applies the corresponding settings. So whether they can use the mobile phone or it can be any other scan device, so appropriately the settings will be applied into the system. So let's get into the system now. So we need to configure the worker right now. So let's get into D365. So inside D365, if you get into warehouse management module under setup, there is option called worker. Just click on worker, and inside worker I have already configured my yeah, I think I need to change the legal entity. I actually configured my user ID in USM of. So so yeah so you can see here that I have already configured my username and ID over here, right? So if you want to configure a new user, then click on new. Then we need to ensure that the worker is already an employee or a contractor in our system, right? Otherwise you will not be able to do the configuration for the new worker. So let us select a worker over here. Let's say it's this Sarah Thomas. I'll just click on select, and then you can select the container packing policy. This is actually related to concept of containerization. So whenever the outbound process is happening, whatever the policy which we define here, based on which the packing containerization behavior will happen. So this we will take it up when we go ahead with containerization setup and default packing station. So whatever the default packing station, whenever the packing has to happen, these default sites and warehouse and location will be taken whenever the work is generated. So let me give the site warehouse as 24, and location. I'm just giving it random site warehouse and location, but this is also not mandatory. What this most important part is, just click on new, and here you need to provide the user ID. Let's say I'm providing the user ID as Sarah and the username as Sarah Thomas, and you need to provide the default warehouse. Whenever I log into my mobile app, what is the default warehouse that is going to be available for performing the work? Let's say I'm this is the warehouse which we created previously in the episode number 4. So if you have missed it, please do watch it and come back to the same, because this is the warehouse which is having advanced warehouse management processes enabled. And next thing is like, under work you can also configure. I'm actually not discussing these three. We will take this in a and after showing you the mobile device. So so what exactly these work is, how the work need to be behave. So you, if you want the user to allow pick location override, allow put location override, these are all self-explanatory. I don't need to explain it to you. Allow transfer order override picking, over picking. So these are basically when the warehouse person who's performing the working transfer or movement or put away or picking operation, whether the override can be done using the mobile device or not. That's what it is configurable. And is a cycle count supervisor. The supervisor will have the access to perform the cycle count, and if there are any modifications, adjustment need to be done using the mobile device, they will be able to post the adjustments also. And then that's the way it is also asking for adjustment quantity limit, how much they can post, maximum, minimum. So these are also the, sorry, maximum percentage and maximum quantity and maximum value until which the cycle count they can do the difference expected cost amount, they can post adjustments. So these are all configurable. That's what we saw. So whatever the configurations we do, this will be applicable to whatever the device, um, whether they are using a mobile phone or a scan device, it will be applicable to all those devices. So here it has to be by default, it will be always active. If you are making this user as inactive, then you need to enable this. You can add n number of user IDs as per your convenience, and if you want to keep it as default, then this user will be a default user, right? And then um, so these are basic configurations of how to create a work user. Now let's go back to our presentation. So this is how you configure the worker in the D3 system. I think I have not saved it. Let me save it once again. Password has not been captured, so I'm just keeping a simple password. Uh, so I'm just the password for the user also. If you want, you can reset the password. So that's also completely possible. So I have just saved it. Right now it is saved. So let's now get into the slide. So we have configured the worker right now. So after configuring the worker, the next step is to configure the mobile device, whatever the device which you are using, whether it is an app in your mobile or if you are using any other scan device, then you need to configure it in the system. The app can be used on devices of different screen sizes and configuration, such as tablet, phone, or arm-held devices. It can be useful to centrally manage these settings from Microsoft Dynamics 365 supply chain management. So whatever the device, whether it's an handheld or scanning device or a mobile application screen, you can use those screens to configure based on the configuration. You, those devices can be used. Okay, so first let's try to see how these mobile devices need to be configured in D365. So for in order to configure the mobile device, you need to get into warehouse management, warehouse setup, and then under mobile device you have mobile device menu and mobile device menu items. First of all, let's get into mobile device menu. Mobile device menu is basically the shows you the master list of what are the list of menu items which need to be available whenever the user logs in. So it can be inbound, this can be given to the receiving team, and the inventory can be given to the warehouse operations team. Outbound can be given to the picking and packing team. So like that, you can configure a menu, and this menu will be assigned, need to be assigned to the worker. So that's why I didn't talk about that. So for example, in the worker section setup and a worker, you see I have not configured if I go to Sarah Thomas. Yeah, so you see here I have not given the menu name. So if we are not giving a menu name, then even though we log in into the mobile device, we will not be able to see any of the I think I wrongly pressed the name. So you will not be able to view any of the menu items over there. So this has to be configured over here, right? So let's say Sarah Thomas is a person who is going to perform the inbound operations. So I want to view what are the menu items that Sarah Thomas need to view. Let's say I should not allow Sarah Thomas to perform the transfer receive. Let me click on edit transfer receive or transfer receive using license plate. Then I need to move it to the um, left side column. And also if transfer receive also I don't want to see, then I move it to the left. On the right side also, using the up and down arrows, you can move it up and down based on what are the menu items you want it to come up in the using the mobile device. So let me save this. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this to the worker inbound. Okay, okay, so menu item should be inbound. So menu name, I'm just capturing it as inbound. So Sarah Thomas is going to view the menu only specific to the inbound operations. So I'll save this, I'll go back. So then I need to configure the menu items. First we configure the menu, then need to configure the menu items. Menu items, you can have a number of menu items. You can click on new, and by default D365 gives you the default data of menu items which are already available in the system. So log off or location review, item inquiry, or cluster pick, so all these are already available by default in your system. And each and every menu item has its own set of options and configurations. So this itself is I would say that a lot of time and attention is required for this topic. I would recommend you to go through all the menu items which are available over here, because each and everything has its own purposes. As like you can see, the based on my selection, the options which are coming over here is getting vary, you can see that, right? So for each and every menu item, you need to create it over here, and these menu items need to be tagged in your mobile device menu, so that the worker can use those menu items and perform the work operations, right? So if I will tell you one more thing. I will also share this link in chat, or sorry, in the description section. I will also share this link where you have a detailed description available in Microsoft Learn about how to configure the mobile device menu items, so that you will get a good idea about it, right? And then you also I will also touch upon this, but before getting into mobile device emulator, let's check out what are the other options which are available in mobile device. So we saw mobile device menu. So mobile device menu items need to be created, and that need to be assigned to the mobile device menu, and this mobile device menu need to be assigned to the worker, so that the worker can access those menus. And then return item receiving policy disposition goes are not required for this discussion. Yeah, Varos app field names are important. Varos app field names by default, you can click on when you come to the screen for the first time. There will not be any options over here. You can click on create default setup. So by default DSTV applies the default setup, and if you want to change any of the input type, it can be alphabet or numeric or date based or selection. So in those cases you can change the input type. So that is also configurable over here. Let's say a item can be alphabetic, or you can also have some, yeah, your batch expiry date field, it can be here it is kept as manual. Or if you want to keep, if you're going to keep it as scanning, then the user will be able to scan it. And input type is basically only date, and user will not be able to input alphabetic values. It can be one, it can system can take only the date values, right? Let me save this. So this is Varos app field names. And then app field priority also. Priority is based on what are the fields which will be displayed over there in your mobile device, based on which the systems, you will be the user who is using the mobile device will be able to input the values. The priority 10 is taken as on top, and priority number 90 is taken, 90 or 99 is taken on the lower this thing. So you can also configure this if you want, but I would say this is not required right now, because by default setup whatever we have, this is completely suffice our requirement for this warehouse management series. But if you want to configure this, still you can go ahead and plan your configurations accordingly. So you can move up and down, you can change the priorities, you can add if you want any other field. So that is completely possible. So and then you can add the mobile device brands. So currently I have configured my laptop because I'm not using a mobile device. I've configured a mobile application in my notebook itself. That's why my notebook is visible over here. So likewise, whatever the mobile device is configured, those mobile brands will be available over here. And also mobile device user settings is possible, like whatever the brand of device which we are using, the user can change the user settings, like what should be the color, bottom position. So these are all like typically what we have in our mobile phones. So this sound level, vibration, this can be configured in your mobile device also, or if you want you can configure it using the D365 also. Here it displays my user ID by default, and I think I can change it to Sarah also if I want. So I'll go back. Then what other options we have is mobile device steps. Mobile device steps is basically a default setup. By if I click on create default setup, the default setup will be applied, but this is also not required for us to perform the operations. So I will just skip this. So basically what I'm trying to say is you need to configure the mobile device menu items, and Varos app field names and field app field priorities if required. And then you need to configure the Varos worker who will be using the mobile device menu. And also, like I said, I'll just duplicate this tab. um, in the slide there is another one more point which we have mentioned is, if let's say you don't have the permission to configure your mobile device, or you don't have a mobile device, in those cases if you want to study this complete Varos management concepts, then using the Varos app mobile emulator you can do that. All you have to do is, after the company name, you need to copy paste whatever the option I have given, action I fund. So if you copy paste the same, it's going to display a mobile emulator using which also you can do operations and test it out how actually the mobile device will work, right? So this is now asking for user id and password. You give the user id and password what we have configured, and system will take you to the screens. So you can see here this clearly says this form is only intended for testing purpose and is not supported in production scenarios. So this is used only for testing purpose. But for this demo, after a long struggle, I have just configured the mobile device in of mobile device which we can use in D365. So just imagine this is how your mobile device is going to look like. So I'll give my ID, then I have to give the password. Now it takes me into the sign in page. So this is typically the mobile device menu item which the user will see. I just configured the mobile device menu items and the mobile device menu. So if I need to perform the put away process, receive and put away, RMA, written material authentication, receive or receive written material put away process. So I will be authorized to do perform all these operations, right? So if I want I can sign out also. You can do the settings over here whatever we saw. I think in the mobile device steps, not in the steps but mobile device brand user settings. So what are the user settings we saw, the same thing is available over here also. That's what we are seeing over here. So if you want you can configure those settings in the mobile device or in D365 screen, and you can perform the respective operations, right? So in the next video we will be getting into the details of how to perform the so it is basically asking me to scan a work or license plate ID. So we will get into these details later in the next video, not in this. But this is how you need to configure the worker and perform the Varos mobile device. You can also do the same with Varos mobile emulator, but like I said, this is only used for testing purposes, right? So that brings us to the end of the video. So in this episode 5, we covered about how to configure the worker, mobile device, and the mobile device menu items. In episode number 6, we will be talking about how to proceed with release to arrows, and in 7, we will be talking about waving and what is exactly waving. Because all these concepts we discussed at a very high level in episode number 2. If you have missed it, please do watch the same and come back to, because I always recommend you to come in the order in which I am posting these videos. It will be highly helpful if you helpful in terms of your learning journey if you watch right from the beginning episode number 1, right? So in the episode number 7, we will be covering about waving and wave and waving processes. So that's it for today's video. I hope you had some good learning about Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. Hope to see you in another interesting topic of release to arrows, maybe tomorrow. Fine. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe or follow. As usual, as I say.